Do you like combat? Do you enjoy seeing your enemy's head cave in? As the sweet taste of yellow numbers appear on your screen, as it's accompanied by the satisfying sting of a man's insides becoming his outsides playing deliciously in your ears. Then look no further, for Mordhau is a game. Mordhau is a visceral metal-on-flesh simulator. Have you ever derived pleasure from beating meat? No, not that kind. I'm talking about this one. If what you just saw tickled your sausage, you should probably stop watching right now and go buy the game. Sure, the learning curve is steep, but let's be honest, it only makes the small victories that much more pleasurable. In Mordhau, you relive the age-old classic of red versus blue. Mordhau has committed itself to providing a truly authentic medieval experience.
What the fuck is happening? Oh! Never!
Just like in the Dark Ages, you must fight against people of foreign colors, capture territory, engage in hyper-realistic duels with the ancient weapons of old, learn to play the lute using third-party programs, and respawn when you die. Let's start with the basics. Who are you? Well, you're you. And him? Well, he's a Mordhau. Your job in Mordhau is to Mordhau people to death in high-octane duels that rely just as much on strategy and recognizing habits as much as alcoholics struggle to recognize theirs. The first to predict the opponent's rhythm is typically the winner, as you'll lose the advantage and fall into your opponent's own rhythm, failing to predict what's a feint and what's not, losing the mind game and thus ultimately losing the duel. But then you'll realize that duels are shitty ways to earn points, and real men just run around the map throwing firebombs and medic bags like some kind of medieval doctor, in order to save enough points to grow your figurative epine. Epine, for those who are unaware, stands for fragile ego. 50% of my experience with Mordhau is trying to get better at cracking heads, and the other is spent running back and forth from resupplies for more firebombs and medpacks. Once you're content with looking like you're about to retake Jerusalem, you might be at a point in the game where you can be considered good. However, if you're like me, then most of the experience you've had so far being good is just using the rapier, which is no different than being a little bitch. So throw away that piece of shit and pick up a man's weapon, and try to learn it well. Or instead be like me once again and give up on every weapon you try to get good at, and then swap to whatever weapon the guy who killed you last was using. And then be shit at that too. The reality is that most weapons are at least good. So pick one and get used to it. Quit being a pussy and commit to one waifu, lest it ruin your lifeu. But even if you put in hours getting used to a weapon's timing, range, and damage, you'll never actually be able to consider yourself good at this game. Mordhau is currently suffering from a disease that plagues it. It's not a simple disease to cure either. It kind of comes with the territory. Chivalry suffered from this one too. I call this disease Natural Selection 2 syndrome. For you see, in Natural Selection 2, there is a rather noticeable community of people keeping the game alive. And that is all well and good, but it struggles to allow people to revive the game's numbers, as the players who are committed to the game have played it for so long that the only ones left to play it are so finely tuned to a meta, skill level, or playstyle that anyone who tries to hop into this community will end up feeling like a piece of shit. You will die over and over. And, like my experience, people will end up saying jargon in chat that makes no sense whatsoever, and you just got to infer everything else.
Gorge dead. Pew pew. Hive at 30.
Basically what I'm saying is, these types of games have a lot to offer, but the barrier for entry can be so insurmountable that you'll find new players and casuals rage quitting before the game can convince you why it's good. Now don't get me wrong, I'm all about getting good, and games that require practice and skill are what I love most. But there's always an issue with this kind of thing. Tech. You know, that thing that lets people rocket jump in Team Fortress 2. I can barely remember any other examples, and searching for them in Google just reminds me that Big Brother wants me to keep clicking on shitty games journo articles to keep me sedated. But hey, let's not get shadow banned now, back to Mordhau. Tech is basically a way of manipulating a game's feature in a specific way which allows you to gain an advantage. Games are made and broken on this stuff. Neki Jakey covered it in one of his Halo 2 videos.
Questionable, really kinda neat tech skill type shit.
Mordhau has a similar issue to what Chivalry had, but not nearly as bad. In Mordhau, when you swing your weapon it goes through a wind-up, then will arc across your screen in the direction you've chosen. Anything in this arc will take damage. You can quicken or slow the speed of the attack by dragging the mouse so the attack begins inside the target's body, or more drawn out by delaying the hit. This makes it harder for people to predict when to block. It's a basic mechanic, but it's very useful in a duelist's toolbox. The problem arises in the same way it did in Chivalry, because these hitboxes are so finely tuned.
Fuck.
You can do some of the most absurd looking attacks in existence on someone. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this kind of stuff. I'm only saying that Mordhau has this stuff too. And although it's not to the degree of absurdity as it was with Chivalry, it's definitely there and it can turn away newer players. Players who stick with this game, however, and learn these features can have the potential to rake in the most kills in the game and become a veritable god. Having a great match in Mordhau is exhilarating. And consistently having one because you're good at the game is even better. What I'm trying to say is that if you wanted an authentic medieval fighting game, Mordhau is pretty goddamn serviceable.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Just keep in mind that once every blue moon, you will encounter someone who is that veritable god, and then you'll realize how much of a frog in a well you were this whole time. In duels, you must do your best not to fall into your opponent's rhythm. Dragging, feinting, and morphing your attacks from a stab to a swing are all necessary for you to win.
Hello there.
Occasionally, you'll spot someone with a massive VP. You don't want to go near these guys, as they're typically good enough at doing your mum you'd think he's your damn father. Footsies are also important. If you can gauge the range of your opponent, you can exploit that to get an attack in during his wind down period. And always aim for where the armor is low. Good players have enough cosmetics, however, to obscure their weak points. So sometimes it's a gamble. The mosh pit combat situations are very different. People will only ever live for a few seconds, so rhythm doesn't matter. You need to trick your opponent immediately. Feints are good, but good players expect them. The best thing you can do in these fights is not panic, and don't swing your weapon if you have friendlies on either side of you. Not only does your weapon not cut through them, but it also opens you to a counterattack. You'll do these two things for most of your experience in Mordhau, so thank God they're so fun. The other time is spent trying out the archer class style and feeling like an idiot because the short spear does that job 10 times better. And the rest is running out from respawn. The maps in Mordhau are what provide the variety to these combat encounters. There's a few game modes, but now that the dust is settled, most of the time you'll either be playing Frontline or Invasion. You'll occasionally join a duel server so you can hone your skills, but that's about it. Shame too, because I remember loving the deathmatch mode at launch. But after playing Invasion, I can see why people don't bother playing anything else. Frontline is capture points with tickets. Sometimes there's objectives. Burn the thing, kill the giants, you know, normal medieval stuff. However, Invasion is so much more fun. Fuck the capture points, let's just do objectives only. It's infinitely more engaging than Frontline in my opinion. In Frontline, most of your time is spent just mosh pitting in different places, but in Invasion, it's closer to defend the thingy. Push back the defenders and kill the nobility, who are actual players and will either go on monstrous killing sprees or die instantly and lose you the game. There is no other outcome. It's nice to defend a clear goal and stop the attackers, but it's also nice to mount an attack on a castle. So now that you know the game inside and out, let's exploit the bastard with classes. Which hilarious and relatable piece of shit killed you today? The Bloodluster. Never die, unless you do, with this absurd playstyle. Run into a fight and just don't stop swinging. Every kill reinvigorates you to become the ultimate headache, fueled by your killing momentum. The Professional. Have you ever lost to someone like 5 times in a row and then died 4 times more? Struggle to land a hit on the most bullshit of players. People who've gotten good. The Stabber. Stand in awe at the enemy that just continues to stab at everything, endless on his quest for victory. Then laugh your ass off as he dies every single time to any of the previous players mentioned. The Defaulter. Struggle to contain your laughter as you spot someone running around in one of the default starting classes, which are essentially free juicy points. And finally, the last player, the Archer. Watch him die in one hit and then have a giggle at the man who brought a bit of wood to a night fight. If there's music in Mordhau, I've barely noticed it. So instead, I've made a playlist of a couple songs that always get me in the mood to crack some skulls. Link in the description or whatever. Mordhau is a wonderfully visceral and carnal experience. There's something that sets off my lizard brain every time I bash someone's head in. Some chemical that's released that keeps me coming back until I burn out for a few months. It's definitely worth getting into. Just be prepared to die a lot at the start. But if you can stick with it, commit to practicing on 1v1 servers and learn from your mistakes, you'll find a rewarding and euphoric experience. And if that shit don't entertain you, there's always modded servers to alleviate your stagnating skill level and make you not hate yourself for never getting any better. If you want more Mordhau entertainment, any video by Iron Pineapple on the game is something I wholeheartedly recommend. And always watch the Mordhau Experience video. Finally, if you want to learn some of the tech I spoke about earlier, the Advanced Mordhau Tech montage by Bubs was incredibly helpful. Thank you for watching my videos. I'm almost at 100 subscribers at the time of writing. Fug yes. Just for that, you get 10% of a face reveal. Hello, post-editing Flex here. I'd like to thank LJB0 for letting me use his music in this video. Please check out his Patreon if you liked his stuff or his YouTube channel. It's linked below. Side note, Mordhau has been one of the worst reviews I've done so far. I lost 30 hours of footage to Mordhau running at a steady 20 frames per second in the recordings without me realizing. Much of this script was written with the footage that I had in mind, so a lot of it has just simply been lost. Consider this video an outlier to my usual stuff. I'm still getting used to making YouTube videos and I don't quite have all the do's and don'ts down just yet. So thank you very much for watching this video and for getting me to 100 subscribers. Next up is Tarkov. Catch us later.